Mostly I went to ordinary public schools. First grade I did go to a private school, but then went to public school from then on. And I would say the influence I had in those schools was having excellent teachers. And for any subject, I was very lucky. I think that it's true that the school experience you get is important, and it's not just the teachers, but the other students you're with. To be around other students who think like you do. My parents were very intelligent people, and they gave us a lot of intellectual freedom, but they also taught us a lot of discipline. So that I have two brothers. They had high expectations for us, and I don't know how they did it, but they did. They made us have high expectations for ourselves. One of my parents, my father, became a science teacher late in life. Before that, he was a military officer. But he instilled in us, both parents did, a strong appreciation for learning. I would have to say I didn't like school. I thought school was boring and I could learn more by myself. I loved science. I remember my earliest experience with science, or the earliest one I remember, was when my father bought a biology kit and brought it home to dissect a frog. And I was 5 years old. He got it for my brother, who was 7. And then he had a model of the visible man, which he painted all the organs on. And he showed us how the frog's organs are located in pretty much the same place as a human. So that was pretty fascinating for me. Yes, I was a good student. It was one of my, I felt driven to just do my best. I was always interested in lots of things. I was interested in art. I was interested in music, in literature. I guess I settled on science probably early in high school as something I wanted to do as a career, and confirmed or reconfirmed my decision in college. I didn't have a sense of purpose as if I were going to go cure disease or save the world. I think the motivation was that that's how my brain worked, that science offered me an opportunity to ask any question I wanted, and if I could figure out how to test it, then I could. It was complete intellectual freedom. That's what I tell students now, that science offers intellectual freedom you will find in no other occupation. As I think scientists have a characteristic in common with young children, and that's a desire to know. It's an insatiable curiosity to go out and find new things, to learn new things just because they're there. Well, I agree with you that it's the questions that have to be asked, but it's also the process. There are other ways to ask questions. Humans are after knowing the truth. Humans are impelled to question the world they live in. And some people try to find the truth through philosophy, or some through art even, some through religion. And scientists use a process that is based on what we call objectively verifiable evidence, that you can get evidence and it doesn't require any opinion, that you can prove it. That you can ask a question, collect evidence, and it's hard evidence. So that's the kind of process that's attractive, I think, to a scientist. I work in the area of what's called neurotoxicology, which is the effects of environmental toxic substances on the brain, how the brain functions. It's an important area in the current world we live in, because we have a polluted environment and because we know things that have been out there for 50 years, such as lead, are toxic to children especially. They're toxic to adults, but when children get exposed to something like lead, they have deficits in their behavior, in their intelligence. And so I've been looking at how lead and other compounds that are toxic in the environment damage cells in the brain. Well, lead is still considered to be one of the most significant contaminants for the brain, for damaging the brain of children. I think it's considered number 2 on the EPA's list of hazardous substances. There are others. Mercury is very toxic, especially methylmercury, which we find in the environment. And now it seems like if the harder we look, the more things we'll find that are toxic. There was a story in the newspaper a few months ago about French fries being toxic because they have a chemical in them. When you heat up the French fries and cook them, they develop acrylamide. Chemically, acrylamide occurs in the food. And people accumulate acrylamide in their blood. And we know acrylamide is neurotoxic, but we don't know if it's neurotoxic at the low levels we eat it. I think what I'd like to share with teachers and students is the approaches, the model systems that we're using. We grow brain cells in culture. We grow them in dishes. And then we can treat these brain cells in dishes with the toxic substance, with lead, for example. And then we can measure how the cell is reacting. We can measure how one cell talks to another. Cells talk to each other. They send chemical signals to each other. We can measure many of the biochemical reactions going on right in that live cell with the kind of imaging techniques we have available here at Texas A&M University. And so in our cell cultures, we're trying to develop them as models that can be used to understand how the human brain is damaged during development by lead. I hope that we will understand better how the environment affects the development of the brain and how it affects the aging of the brain. And then we're now at the other end of the aging spectrum in the population in the United States, and we're worrying more about diseases of aging like Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease, both of which have been linked to environmental exposures to toxic substances. If we can find out which cells are being damaged and if we can treat that or prevent that, then that's what I'd like to see. The ability to work with highly intelligent people, both my colleagues and my students, that's a great deal of fun. And the intellectual freedom I mentioned earlier, the ability to ask any question that I can think of and test it, as long as I can come up with funding to do it. Because you live in an environment that has toxic substances that are put in it, mainly by the activities of humans, and because this environment is the one you're going to inherit from your parents, you should be worried about how it will affect your life and how it will affect your own children. So the pursuit of science, the pursuit of neurotoxicology offers us a way to adapt further to our environment so that we can live safely in it and so that other species can as well. I have taught, and I would have to say that now I'm an administrator, which takes so much time that I lately haven't taught. But in the past, I've taught courses such as histology, which is, they call it also microanatomy. It means the structure of things, the forms of cells and tissues, and is studied through the microscope. And I've taught neurobiology, which is the study of the nervous system, and cell biology, which is the study of cells. Sometimes I have taught to the fifth graders and children of that age dogfish shark anatomy, where we would take a dogfish shark to the class and do a dissection with the class so that they can see the incredible structures that occur in a shark that allow it to be a species that's been successful for 4.5 million years on the Earth with a rather primitive kind of anatomy. It's just a marvelous structure. Humans are the most adaptable of any species, as a species, I believe, in terms of their being able to make decisions, informed decisions. They don't adapt like a bacterium does by just mutation, but by invention, by discovery and invention and modifying the environment. Mostly I like to play music. I play the harp, and that's something I've done for years and years, and I play the accordion. I think they're very compatible to be a musician and a scientist. I think they balance each other, and I think it keeps me sane to be able to use an expression that is not logic and rationality, it's emotion. I would tell them to consult their teachers for materials that are available now about toxicology. They're available from national organizations like the Society for Toxicology. Students can get books at their level and other kinds of information they can read about. And I would encourage students to find opportunities to come to the universities and talk to people. I think we have to have an informed public. People need to understand what scientists are doing, maybe not in detail, but at least in general, so that they will make informed decisions about public policy. If they are reacting to inaccurate information, they can't make good decisions.